Unchurned is presented by UpdateAI.
Nobody wants to sign up for it, having the revenue number over your head. So it's like, if you're not going to sign up for the risk at the same time, it's hard to reap the rewards too.
Yeah.
So,
John, what do you think about that? Where do you land on that perennial debate of shall CS renew or not renew?
I just want to go to Sales Club. That's it. That's all I care about. I'm just really excited on a Monday after Thanksgiving, Halloween. I've been saying Thanksgiving all week after Halloween. Yeah. Sugar crash, everybody.
Just going to let you ramble for this episode, John. You want to do a Ric Flair for us? Woo!
Woo!
Nicole?
Woo!
Okay, to kick things off, Josh, how many trick-or-treaters did you get this last week?
I actually left. So I wanted to go see what was going on in the neighborhood. So we actually left a bowl of candy out in front of the apartment door. I'm in New York City.
Gone when you got back?
Most of it was gone. The super in my building could actually refill the bowl, which is really nice. But here's what I did, John, and this will not surprise you at all. So I printed out a little placard, a little 8x11, that said, "Hey, sorry, we're out. Happy Halloween," and I put 2 bowls. And one of the bowls was regular size candy bars, Twix, Three Musketeers, like the real candy bars. People, the kids love those. The other bowl was a bed of lettuce. And I said, "Happy Halloween. Pick one from either bowl. And,
how much lettuce did you have left?
There were a few, flakes of lettuce. What am I looking for?
Flakes? Leaves?
Thank you. Leaves of lettuce that were gone, actually. I don't know who took those, but
the neighborhood rabbit.
That was my trick or treat in my very typical sarcastic humor. Okay. Anyway, we're really excited today. We don't have Christy here. We've got me and John bantering away, and then we've got Nicole Guarino. I hiccuped on that one. Nicole Guarino. I want to say strong with pride. Yes. Who is the Director of Customer Success at Cambridge Mobile Telematics, which is doing some really cool stuff. Very, very purpose-driven company, as I learned in our sync up previously. So, Nicole, thank you so much for being on this episode.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Tell us a little bit about, first of all, tell us a little bit about Cambridge Mobile Telematics, just to get things started.
Yeah, so a little bit about us. We are the world's leading telematics solution provider. I feel like a lot of people probably don't know what telematics is, but everybody knows who insurance companies are, and I guarantee you everybody has auto insurance. And all of your auto insurance and these insurance companies have user-based insurance. So that is like Progressive has Snapshot. You download an app. You take drives and you basically get rated as you drive. Like State Farm has one, a ton of customers, USAA has one. And we are the telematics solution, collecting the data and passing that back to insurance companies to make sure that we fairly rate how you drive.
So you are the world's greatest big brother of drivers, backseat driver, effectively, is what I just heard.
I'm in customer success, and I like to tell everyone we're not Big Brother. But
I know. I joke, but you've got access to some cool data. So but you're also very mission driven. So tell us a little bit about the mission of the company.
Sure. So our mission, and really what has started with our founders, is ultimately to make the world and drivers safer. It's mission driven because we ultimately started the company because we wanted to reduce distracted driving. Distracted driving has become, the number one reason for casualty on the road. And so if you can teach people, basically, that their distraction has an ultimate consequence, if we can help people be less distracted on the road, we can ultimately make the world's roads safer and drivers safer. So that's really where the mission and how we have been driven from the very beginning has started.
And so 48% of casualties on the road are due to distracted driving. Is that right?
Correct. So we've had some recent studies that we haven't done, but NAFTA is the company that does that sort of research. And they found that distracted driving is almost on par with drunk driving in terms of casualties and fatalities.
Yeah, it is.
As a parent of an 18-year-old who's driving often these days, I appreciate the work that you're doing. So walk me through a little bit how you got into this space. So we were just kind of like looking through your history on LinkedIn. What brought you in here? Was it the mission? Was it the opportunity? Was it the role? Give us a little bit of path into it.
Yeah, I've always been mission driven. I think if you check me out on LinkedIn, you'll see I started my career in sales. I was always that person in sales that got the tough accounts because I'm good at fixing problems, good at listening, good at solving, customer issues and making sure that they like us again, which is great in customer success. But, when you're in sales, you're just like, gosh, I just need an easy win here and there. Everything feels like this battle in sales. And it was. And so when customer success really started becoming a thing, my husband is in sales and InsurTech. And, not to age myself, but back in the day, it was like you were a sales road warrior. So you were like, if you weren't out on the road and traveling to meet your customers back then, you weren't really being productive in sales. And we had 2 salespeople in a household and we wanted a family and have kids. Someone had to be home. And around that time, customer success was really at its infancy. And I heard about it and I was like, you know what, this seems to be like a great fit for me based on what we do. It's the type of salesperson I was. So I made the jump really into customer success. And I think I had started and it's client services, but then it kind of rebranded itself into customer success, I like to call it. So that's how I took the leap. How I got into CMT was I was looking for my next opportunity. My husband heard of, my husband being an InsurTech his entire career, had heard of CMT and had heard of the work that we were doing. And he was basically like, hey, that's the kind of the next big thing in terms of rating for insurance. I would definitely give them they recruited me. And so I took the leap over. But as soon as I heard the mission, I've always been mission driven. I was sold. I loved it.
And going back to the product for one second here, before we jump straight into the CS thing, what's the number one or maybe even some things that might surprise most folks that aren't as educated on this with the inside baseball numbers? What are the top signals of behavior that will lead to an accident, driving behavior?
Yeah. So heartbreaking is the number one indicator of whether or not
I'm sorry, you said heartbreaking, like you stole somebody's heart, or you break hard. You break hard. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So you're breaking too hard. Heartbreaking is probably one of the outside of distraction. So everyone knows that if you're distracted and you're, distracted driving, that seems to be the obvious, but the unobvious one is heartbreaking. So it is the
well, that's one that you can measure in your telematics, right? You can't really. Can you measure distracted driving, or do you have the AI stuff out for that yet?
Yep, you can measure distracted driving. So distracted driving is actually the easiest one to measure.
What?
Not that heartbreaking is hard, but yeah, if you pick up your phone and you're tapping and you have an app, we know that you're using the app, and we can tell what type of tapping events you're doing.
Oh, wait, how do you know that? How do you know what if they're using their phone
while you're driving?
Yeah.
Well, it's connected to the car. Connected to an app.
It's connected to the app.
To the car.
So if you have the app downloaded on your phone, everything is actually in the mobile device. We can actually tell, not to go completely off subject, but if you got into a car accident and your airbags deployed, we can tell that from the technology in your mobile phone.
Wow. Because I don't know if that's awesome or terrifying. I'm 50-50 on that.
That is the AI and the algorithms talking. Yeah. We can tell by the different,
whatever meters they have in the phone. Yeah.
The impact and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
The impact of the airbags going off, how it makes the change with the phone.
That's
and all the sensors you have in the phone can pick them up. So we can definitely pick up distracted driving, and we can tell what kind of distracted driving events. We can tell whether you're texting, or we can tell all the different distraction events on your phone.
Huh.
We can also tell when it's connected, and we can tell if you're using it connected to your vehicle that you're less likely to be as distracted as if you were using your actual mobile phone.
That makes sense.
Let me see if I could just kind of square the circle, because I see a lot of ads for insurance companies that are saying download this app or like plug in this ODB2 sensor or something like that, and then safe driving events will decrease your insurance rate. Is this kind of what we're tying into, where you have all of these things? Okay, they don't hard brake, they're not distracted driving, so they get this score every 90 days, and it helps their insurance rates. Is that kind of the thing that we're talking about here?
Yeah. So we are the technology provider behind those. So yes.
Got it.
For 23 of the top 25 auto insurers in the U.S.
Correct.
And so is that true, or is that a falsehood there that you're helping to save insurance rates for folks, or are there some people getting punished for poor driving?
Well,
practices?
I'm sure that the opposite is also true. That if you are doing those hard brakes, it is one of those indicators of high risk.
Yeah. Yes,
but we're using, it's a lot of the R&D that we're doing is really how do you use AI and ChatGPT to think about how do you take all of this information and make it in a consumable form so that people can actually improve their driving behavior. So that's kind of like on the forefront of the things that we're thinking about.
Yeah. So you oversee the CS team. Your team is around 16 folks. Is that correct?
Yep.
And tell us a little bit about how you.
Since the last time we chatted, we have 2 new hires.
Amazing.
And we added another segment of our team, but different role, but going to be under the customer success belt, under the technical account management. So we just hired for that as well. So we went from having 16 to 19 now, so that's exciting.
And what's the composition of the team? How do you keep the team structured?
So right now we have obviously different levels of customer success managers. We have, I would say, the typical structure of like CSM 1, 2, senior, and then we have what we call our principal levels as individual contributors that are more of our strategic CSMs. So I guess instead of calling them strategic, they're principal here. And so we have different structures. So we have our VP, I'm the director, we have a couple senior managers, and then all of them have different levels of CSM. So right now I'm managing the strategic team of the principal levels, while we have some senior managers that are managing like customer success level 1s and 2s, and some that are managing the senior CSMs.
But I think your segmentation is you got a lot of big customers, right? If you've got 23 of the 25 auto insurers in the U.S., it sounds like a majority of your customers are enterprise strategic level that you're maybe not.
We have a majority of strategic. And then if you think of internationally, we are hiring a customer success team in Europe. So we have a few customer success CSMs in Europe. So one's sitting in France, we have a new hire he started a couple weeks ago, started in Italy. We've been looking in Spain and in Germany as well. So we're doing more hiring internationally. And then we have our APAC team. So we're really working with the world's largest insurance companies in auto as well.
Awesome. When you think now of the end of this year and going into Q1, what is a big rock that you're pushing up the hill? What's a major focus of your organization now?
Point? So for our organization, this is, I would say, probably typical, is making sure we're hitting our revenue and growth goals. So we're a private company. But we're always making sure that we're hitting 30% revenue goals, 30% program growth as well. My team is not responsible for revenue. So because our clients, as you mentioned, they're enterprise clients, we have a secondary. So we only talked about our user-based insurance product. We have a crash and claims product. And our crash and claims product is equally as big and has the potential to be bigger than our flagship product. And so the enterprise deals with some of our secondary products are equally large. Sales always stays on the account. So while they're hunting for new revenue, our team is managing the day-to-day relationships. Our COO always likes to call our team the quarterback. We're calling the plays. We know when to call sales back. We need to know when we need technical support. We know when we need to call in product or our customer solutions teams. But so for us, we're constantly as a company driving towards those goals every year, making sure that we hit them, because we typically hit them year over year, or if there's a year we didn't hit 30% revenue, we hit 28, 29. So we're fairly close.
And how about on your team? Specifically, how does that trickle down to you on the CS side?
So my team is really here for like program adoption and growth. So like my mind is always like, if this was our like user goals that we have, end user goals for the year, what do they like? Are we going to hit those goals? Like, did we hit our forecast? I'm doing a lot of the work I'm doing is a lot of the forecasting work on, are we hitting our forecast, or and what are we accounting for future forecasts for the next year? So I'm definitely, if you're thinking me in particular and my VP, we're constantly thinking about how are we going to hit those goals and which clients are more likely than not that we can influence to do more with their programs to grow.
And have you thought about ways that you're going to shape your programs to help increase those goals?
Yeah, so we have best practices. We have playbooks that we deploy. And so I'm always looking every year to say what best practices have our customers adopted. And like working with those CSMs to say, what are the roadblocks of the best practices that they haven't adopted? Like, why haven't they? Is it a roadblock that you're facing internally? Is it a roadmap issue with some of your customers? Like, let's figure out what the roadblocks are so that we can strategize on how to implement what we know would be a best practice for a customer.
What's the biggest best practice that correlates to a good customer and the roadblocks that are faced in getting that to completion?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have a challenging product, right? You called it out in the very beginning. You said like, hey, Big Brother's watching you. And so, we always have this hurdle, with the end user adoption on, did you set up your program in a way that an end user would, want to use the program? So it's like, are you scoring correctly? Does this make sense? All of these little nuances, like, are you setting up your messaging with either push notifications or SMS appropriately to make sure that, when iOS and, Apple is throwing that pop-up that says, hey, this app has been tracking you in the background X amount of times, do you want to always allow permissions? Most people automatically default only when using the app.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if you're going to be in this program, it needs to be allowed all the time. So like, what are some of the ways we can reach the end user to let them know, like, if you don't take this action, you're going to lose your discount or you're going to lose your rating. And so it's something that if you ever signed up for one of these programs, like, our partners don't do the best job of educating you on like what the consequences are or like how it actually works. Because think about it, if you call an 800 number to get insurance and they sold you insurance, they're not going to really sit down and tell you like, hey, this is how this works. They want to get you like on and off the call with a new policy as fast as possible. And so there's a lot of things that if not communicated correctly, you can lose the end user for adoption. And you also didn't have the best experience with the insurance company if you got quoted a rate and suddenly it changed because you didn't take the right permissions when you signed up for the program.
So are you accessing those end users, the customers of your customers directly?
We don't unless it's through push notification or SMS, in which case we've gotten permission to then, with the messaging that they approve, to say, like, these are the frequency of messages that you should send and the cadence in which you should send it, to make sure that you don't lose your end user to those, to those sort of, like, I guess you could say, not a mistake, but just like a misinformation of what to do.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, one quick question, just, you mentioned, upsells and opportunity kind of gets passed back over to your sales team.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the metrics that you're tracking your CSMs on for success? Is it purely adoption? Is it program, management? Walk me through some of those KPIs.
Yeah, so we have best practices. We have a ton of different initiatives. We know what's been deployed and not been deployed. So we track how many growth initiatives they launch quarterly and yearly. The other thing is just we count what's called like monthly active users. So it's a mobile program. We know how many users we have monthly on the program and yearly on a program. And so we track to make sure that, if a customer was at a set number of users in the beginning of the year, we obviously want to see X amount of growth from our customers. And so we're tracking that user growth metric with our CSMs. So we're definitely program growth and best practice growth initiatives that we're measuring for the CS team. That is not to say that the CS doesn't do a majority of the heavy lifting.
Right.
When it comes to upsell and adoption. That has been widely and greatly debated around here because our team does do a lot of heavy lifting. But from a sales side, I totally understand why it stays with sales, because at time of renewal, it's always an opportunity to upsell and expand into our customers, which is where sales really falls. And they do a good job of increasing revenue that way.
John, what do you think about that? Where do you land on that perennial debate of shall CS renew or not renew?
Hey, everybody, it's Josh. I'm taking a quick break from the podcast to tell you a bit about UpdateAI. I started UpdateAI to solve two major challenges for CS teams. The first is that we save CSMs 4 to 5 hours per week with our productivity through AI. Secondly, we give leaders a window into all the conversations across each account and the entire portfolio. So we help knowledge transfer, we help increase the coverage model of your CS teams, and we help you detect emerging patterns in what your customers are telling your CSMs across all the risks, product feedback, advocacy moments, and expansion opportunities. So come check us out at www.updateai. It's completely free to sign up and trial.
John, what do you think about that? Where do you land on that perennial debate of shall CS renew or not renew?
I think it depends on what product lines look like upon growth. Like if you have one product and 15 that customers aren't using, I think if there's like a very natural transition to say, I'm going to add this module and I'm going to add this module, makes a lot of sense for sales to kind of be brought in to work through, infrastructure, process alignment. For ones that kind of sit more like on the usage side, which is what my company is, where it's very much just like we're going to buy a bundle and then we drive usage to buy a bigger bundle. We're very integrated in monthly active usage and, yearly users. That is something that I'm really passionate about, is saying I'm doing all the work. I'm digging these trenches, right? And I'm filling it in with the customers. I want a part of that.
Yeah, a slice of that pie. I kind of feel the same way in that situation. It makes like you said, that makes a lot of sense, John. I've never actually gotten as much value from any specific utterance of yours.
It's been 2 years.
Yeah, but that's like that was a very efficient use of your time there. That with like very like multivariate product lines, it makes sense to have sales come in to educate on new opportunities. But if it's just about usage and renewing and expanding the existing, then it should be CS.
Well, that's also the difference between product-led and sales-led growth too. So I mean, there's very much like alignments between how the industry and how the market is growing in these spaces. So
yeah. I mean, I don't know, Nicole. Where do you? We don't want you to cross any picket lines here, but where do you sit on this debate, or not debate, consideration, let's say, of the roles?
Yeah, I'm debating on who's going to be listening to this podcast.
Exactly.
We'll just bleep it out. It's fine.
Yeah.
I came from sales, so a lot of this work I've kind of initiated and have, let's just say I've teed up a lot for our sales team in the past. And so it's been bittersweet, I guess you could say, where I'm like not reaping the reward that sales has had. However, having been in sales, married to a salesperson in tech, like I do respect the fact that you take a lot of risk in that role. And it's definitely, nobody wants to sign up for it, having the revenue number over your head. So it's like, if you're not going to sign up for the risk at the same time, it's hard to reap the rewards too.
Yeah.
So
I just want to go to sales club. That's it. That's all I care about. Like I just need.
I agree. I just want the vacation.
That's it. That's it.
But yeah, like I said, I don't know. I've always said, because like I said, I've worked in both roles and they're both hard. From my perspective, it's like pick the poison you're comfortable with, I guess, when you're in a client-facing role.
Well, I think this is actually one of those things that you and I could probably spend a lot of time, like probably arguing over, is what revenue is important to the business, right? And I think it really does depend on like industry. It depends on segment. It depends on all of these things. But in the current model, the net new and the current owned revenue are equally important. And if we're not reaping the same rewards, while there is less risk as a CSM when it comes to just base salary and performance and longevity of that, the revenue that CSMs own is, if not more, but equally important to the revenue that sales comes in. And I think what I hear from most folks that come from the sales org is like, oh, well, that's harder. They get all of the big bonuses and the big payouts and they get the watches and the steak dinners and the Porsche experience. And it's like, but you're just a CSM, right? And we get this, we're just kind of like fighting through a little bit of this of like, but this is like a legitimate profession too. And it's a lot better these days, but I do hear a lot of folks that come out of sales that just don't necessarily see owned revenue as exciting as like that net new kind of high that you get.
John, I actually would agree. I totally agree with you. I don't think we would argue here. I do think I've come from CS experience in a real SaaS world. And I would say the difference between what we do now is that we are really bespoke. And because we are bespoke, like in a SaaS world, if it ever went back to sales, I probably wouldn't work there. I would be like, no, I'm doing all this work. I'm keeping it and it's mine. But I think for here, it does make sense because it is a very bespoke product. We have a mobile product. We have an IoT device that we're selling as well. So we're building our own IoT devices. We have a white label mobile app, but we have customized mobile apps. And so we live in we are a tech company, that we are a SaaS company, but the reality is that we're very much a bespoke technology company. And because of that, I do understand with the amount of revenue, like the size of our actual revenue deals are massive. And so I can understand where you're not going to be managing to the day-to-day if you have this massive enterprise deal that you're chasing after from one of your clients. Yeah. And so that split seems to make sense here because we're not like, they're not like, a $50,000, $100,000 deal, like for an upsell, they're like millions of dollars when we're looking at upsells. And so I do understand, why the decisions have been made to make sure you keep sales in the process.
Yeah. And the structure of the deal is also like a very important component. So I'm with you on that. I think we did find consensus here.
Yeah. But I totally agree. I mean, like I actually said, depending on who listens to this, I'm really I'm biting my tongue because I've done a ton of work here.
And Josh and I tend to agree on this too. Like not so much like we need to kill CS, but I mean this idea that like CS and sales are completely separate and like we're all revenue. Like whether we own the renewal or whether we talk about upsells, like this is the revenue org, right? This is where we're at. And I really love it when teams work well together. And I don't just mean from like the IC standpoint, but from a leadership standpoint to say there is no such thing as post-sales. It's just pre-renewal. Like everything is working towards that renewal, from the kickoff with the sales to the handoff to CS, and then that renewal event. Who owns it? That can be dependent. But if we get this mindset of that this is just one trajectory getting to renewal, then sales is going to win and CS is going to win. And leadership isn't going to say, why are my children fighting? Right?
Yeah. I can actually say, like, our sales and CS team, this is the first organization, and it took a little bit where I had to, when I was actually the first CS hire. And so there was a lot from sales that I have to be like, yeah, this is not your job. It's mine now. This is why I'm here. So I'm taking it. Thanks. It's mine. And also, you're not going to steal the glory of the work that I've done, because I've done it. But I will say this has been the most collaborative sales team that I've ever worked with. It's like truly a partnership. We're super collaborative. Of course, like, it's like every sibling relationship where you have bumps in the road. But at the end of the day, we have a great collaboration. I don't think there's ever been a time that I've worked here where I thought, I cannot believe CS sold that. Like, not CS. I can't believe sales sold this, and now I have to fix this issue. And you know this. I don't have to tell you this, I'm sure, to both of you, but you've all have probably worked with salespeople that oversold. And then when it gets to CS, you have to, roll back that messaging. And so you're left holding the bag of what was overpromised, and now you're going to under-deliver, where that happens all the time. And you just think, why is sales doing this to us? You're making our lives difficult. I've never actually had that here. So,
why do you think that is? What do you think is in place that
they're afraid of you, Nicole?
No. I always say they hired salespeople that I feel like could be good CS people. And it's interesting. It's funny. My VP just told me I did 61 interviews so far this year in terms of hiring. So spent a lot of time interviewing. And I feel like the people that I've been interviewing for in this role is like, there's obviously very much like the CS typical skill that I'm looking for, but I always like to have that person that innately can sell by being consultants. And I think our sales team are very consultative sellers.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Good. Nicole, we're going to leave it at that. Sure. This was great. It was awesome to hear about what you guys are doing. I love the pure mission behind helping to create safer drivers and better driver behavior. And some of the insight that you guys get from your terabytes and terabytes of data, or whatever order of magnitude.
What's the bigger word? I don't even know.
Googles of data.
I think that would blow your mind on how much trip processing we do here.
I can't even imagine. And next time we'll have to talk about some of the AI, because I'm sure there's some really cool AI stuff that your team is working on.
Yeah, we're doing some pretty awesome stuff on the end user AI journey.
Yeah. But thank you so much. And as your team grows, of course, your team's growing and you guys are rocking and rolling. So best of luck as we head into next year.
Yep. Thank you, Nicole.